All right, good evening, everyone. Yes, all right. I have decided to step from behind the scenes on this occasion to welcome all of you to our final event in the year-long commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the formation of the HRD Graduate Programs Unit in the Department of Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work here at UWI Mona campus. But I want to do more than welcome you today. I want to thank you all for your support through the twists and turns of the last 12 months. For believe me when I say that there are people sitting in the room now without whom the unit could not have accomplished even half of what it was that we had managed to do this year. For this year has been one of stepping forward to share with the world some of the deliberations that take place in the HRD unit daily. We have sought to explain that we are much more than a teaching academy that prepares our students to transform global organizations and the societies in which they find themselves through the development of the expert professional skills and the development of innovative solutions that enhance their individual, organizational, and societal capabilities, and through the dissemination of extant knowledge. Because without doubt, we do that in the HRD unit very well. But routinely, we do a lot more. And throughout this year, we have sought to host a series of 15 major activities with the help of some of the finest academics and professionals in the region to show you that we are actually the architects of some of these ideas ourselves. We have spent a year telling anyone who would listen about the direction in which we believe that Caribbean organizational research should go. We have proposed the development of a transformative Caribbean identity through the use of models and metaphors to describe our collective experience. We have articulated our vision for the development of our discipline in order to circumvent the challenges which we will meet while we take on the opportunities for the next 20 years. And we have shared our ideas about organizational transformation in the region and called for changes in the way in which we negotiate the power dynamic in our organizations and how we express ourselves culturally and how we manage engagement and trust, organizational productivity, structural, social, and psychological informalism, and the need for social affirmation. Beyond this, and more practically, in the last 3 months, we spent time renewing our commitment to advocacy in Jamaica's industrial relations arena for persons who were here with Orville Taylor's presentation. And we have encouraged our students to move toward a more entrepreneurial HRD in the 2 lectures on how to leverage what you know to become a consultant. So, as we conclude this aspect of the celebration of our 20 years of operations this evening, we return to our roots and the discussion of leveraging personal power to effect and manage organizational change. But I will leave the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker to my colleague Shamone King. But I want you to know that although this will be the last public discussion about our work for some time, we are by no means going away in the HRD unit. In the coming months, we have promised ourselves that we will be writing up some of our ideas. And so I urge each of you here today to join us in the writing, and then again in the launch of our series of books on interaction, organization, and new theory in the Caribbean. So again, I have to thank you all very much for having joined us on the adventure that this year has turned out to be for us. And I thank you even more for being here this evening. Some of you I know are fresh from an exam, and I know that all of us have come here in the rain. I mean, we haven't seen rain in 2 weeks, and we're seeing it today. And we're all here. And I hope that the grades that you get and the blessings that we receive today are all that we wish them to be. So without any further delay, I would like to invite Shamone King to come to the lectern to introduce our speaker. Shamon, some of you may know her. She's the lady who was instrumental not only in the delivery of all those editions of the HRD Herald that we've had this year, but also she's the person who is the main architect in the development of the HRD TV channel on YouTube. So Shamon, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Olivine. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Tashfeen Ahmad. Mr. Tashfeen Ahmad is a results-oriented and focused team player with excellent management, leadership, negotiation, and people skills. He is here today because he has a positive attitude and thrives on working in a challenging environment geared towards growth and taking initiative, characteristics that are necessary for leading organizational change in an evolving world. Mr. Ahmad has the ability to handle multiple projects simultaneously, meet deadlines consistently, and work well with all ethnic and socioeconomical backgrounds. He has demonstrated ability to settle well in contrasting cultures through successful assignments held in territories such as Jamaica and Pakistan. Tashfeen Ahmad has published papers that have dealt with themes such as assisting lecturers, universities, and their administrators to repair trust and management change after mismanaged layoffs, particularly when survivors' morale is low, and how to make improvements in the role of the staff environment champions and achieve better sustainability in higher education institutions. Mr. Ahmad, seasoned traveler, was educated in Pakistan, the United States, the United Kingdom, and right here at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica. Would you please help me to welcome Mr. Tashfeen Ahmad to address us on the topic, Change or Die, Leading Organizations in a Constantly Evolving World.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you. A pleasant evening, ladies and gentlemen. Also, I would like to congratulate all of you as I just learned that you guys are celebrating your 20th anniversary. This is quite an achievement. I was looking at the vision of HRD graduate programs, and as I was reading it, I saw, as you can see on the screen, it speaks about propelling organizational change in 21st century. So the institute where you are studying, it is their vision for their students to propel change. First of all, I would like to talk a little bit about change. What is change? As we know that change is always hard. It is not easy to change. And there are many reasons why it is hard. It is hard because obviously when we want to change, it asks us to go out of our comfort zone. And necessarily we don't want to be out of our comfort zone. Change requires us to change our habits, which are not necessarily easy because they are ingrained in our systems. So because of those reasons, change is quite hard. It is not easy. But then when we are looking at your vision, it talks about 21st century organizations, the modern organizations. And when we look at them, we learn that they are very dynamic, as you would have learned that majorly because of the technological changes which are required for most of the organizations. It is very hard to keep up with them unless we are willing to change and accommodate and adopt and adapt ourselves and the colleagues we manage. So based on those reasons, this idea of managing change in current environment becomes very important. But then we might want to ask, why should we change? Of course, we want to stay in our comfort zone. It is hard to change our habits. So what is the point of changing? And why your department put the effort to put this in the vision? Any thoughts? What do you guys think? Well, let me help you with this. I was looking at the difference between successful and unsuccessful people. And I want to share a couple of stuff with you. What are the differences between successful and unsuccessful people? What makes people successful? So I came up with these pointers. Successful people, they talk about ideas, as you would know. On the other hand, unsuccessful people, they talk about people. They don't talk about idea. Right? Successful people, they want others to succeed, right? As you would have observed. Think of any successful person who come in your mind, and think of their habits, and you would learn that they want others to succeed, always. On the other hand, unsuccessful people, they want others to fail. They don't see other people succeed, right? Then successful people, they forgive others. They don't have time to hold grudges, right? They want other people to improve. On the other hand, unsuccessful people, they want to hold grudges, stay in past, don't move on, don't change, right? Then again, successful people, they give compliments, they give encouragements to others, right? And then unsuccessful people, what they do? They criticize without any valid reason, right? We might have experienced this in our workplace, right? And then successful people, they believe in the concept of continuous improvement. They keep on improving themselves, keep on developing, keep on learning from past experiences. Right? And unsuccessful people can't do that. Then successful people, they take responsibility of their failure. They don't blame on other people, right? And then this is where I wanted to come to, that successful people, they embrace change. They are not afraid of change, right? Now initially we said that change is of course hard, and there are obvious reasons to it. But lately scientists have found out that our brains are made up of plastics. I'm not saying they are literally made up of plastic. The concept is neuroplasticity. It says that we can rewire our habits. We have that ability to rewire, change habits. But what they are saying, that we can change habits, but with the help of consistent efforts, deliberate efforts, conscious efforts. And then we can change it. Now, when we are talking about organizations and we are talking about 21st century modern organizations, we would see that they are repeatedly making some mistakes, and we would want to learn about those mistakes. Why we want to learn about those mistakes? So we don't make those mistakes. We learn from other people's mistakes over there. So what we are going to do in this presentation is that we are going to go through around 8 of those errors which are common, and we would like to understand what we can do to minimize those errors in our organizations whenever we are going through change effort, whenever we are going to transform any activity, any process. What are the errors we can stay away from? So this work is basically published by John Carter, who is Harvard University's ex-professor. So based on his research, he is saying that whenever you want to inculcate change in any organization, it is very important that you create a sense of urgency. So basically he's saying that the people who are going to make the change, You need to communicate with them that this change is urgent. This cannot wait. This has to be done now. Because many times in our organizations, what happens is that we communicate and we want to change something because of some good, valid reason. But because the employees have so much communication coming in, so much information, that they cannot remember that the change which is required, the thing which is required from them is that urgent. So on their priority list, maybe it would go on number 22 because they have to do so many other things. You have limited amount of time. So the research suggests that whenever you want to transform, make change, you want to communicate it very clearly that it is urgent. Now many times, based on what the organizations I have looked at, what happens is that leadership says that, okay, this is what we want to do, and they would sit down with 2, 3, 4 key people, sit down in a room and formalize a strategy. And they would say, okay, this is how we are going to do it, and we will just tell the people. And because it makes sense to us, it is going to make sense to them. So they are saying, make a strategy, key people, and just roll it out and it will happen. Very smart people do that. Very smart. And nothing is wrong with that approach because it works for a while. But in the long run, it does not work. Because for change to really materialize, you have to win the hearts and minds of the people. Right? Just the leadership alone cannot make it happen. So it is very important that you make it clear to them that it is urgent. There are many techniques which can be used. For example, technique of storytelling. We all like story. For example, if I had a story which can include the change process, it would be more interesting, it would be more fun for you to listen, right? Whenever we are talking, for example, we are lecturing in class, I have seen it many times, students, they are more interested when you are telling them a story which is linked with theory. Because we are wired that way. From childhood, we like to listen to story, right? So storytelling, many successful leaders, they make a story and they tell it to their employees, their workers. And what that story tells, it basically, the structure is like this, that they say, okay, this is where we are, and this is where we want to reach. And if we reach there, these are the benefits for us and for you. Because you have to, in the story, you have to tell them that what will they gain if they make the change, what is in it for them? If the people who are going to produce the change for you and they don't see what is in it for them, they might not be interested in following up. So very clearly you want to communicate that this thing, for example, a transformation effort can reduce the time which used to take to do some task. So they might be able to do some tasks quickly, in less time, right? So that is very important, key step. So instead of focusing on strategy, of course strategy is important, but then what Carter is saying there is that you have to mention it to them, the urgency that this is required. If we don't do it, our competitors are going to take over. If we don't do that, we would go out of the business. If we go out of the business, you might lose this job, right? That kind of thing. So make it urgent for them. They have to see it that it is really urgent, right? Only then they might take some step, right? So this is one error which leaders are making when they are trying to transform organizations. They are not making the case of the urgency, right? So when we are trying to transform any process, any procedure, and we want it to be successful, we want to make the case that, well, this is very urgent. And this is the fallout of it. If we don't do this, this is the fallout. And these are the consequences of not doing it. But if we do it, these are the positives. We'll increase our market share. You will increase your competency. So that is very important. Second error now, it is talking about forming a coalition, forming a group of like-minded people. So the idea here is that change cannot be done alone. You need other people to help you. As the organization becomes bigger and bigger, more complex, you would need more help from different departments. So first of all, of course, once you have created the urgency, then you need to form coalitions. Find people who are willing to help you. People who believe in the same vision, for example, same focus. They have the same focus as you have. But what is happening is that organizations, leadership in the top, they are just forming coalition maybe in their department, in their close circle. They are not taking the other departments on board with them. Or maybe they are only making coalition at the top level. They are not bringing in someone from middle management, from junior management, who can come and identify some of the problems which they might face when they go in the change process. So it is very important to form a coalition. If you don't form a coalition, very soon you would see that people who resisted the change initially, important people from the organization are going to join with them. Because always you are going to find people who are going to resist the change. That is going to happen every time. Think of any situation in your organization, in your company, where some people wanted to change something, or you floated an idea, and other people said, no, 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 no. This cannot happen right away. Right? They are afraid of change maybe. Right? So in those situations, it is very helpful that you have coalition. And it is also very important that that coalition increases in size. If you have 4 people initially, it should go to 8, 12, 50, 60. The research indicates that 75% of top management should be saying yes, should be in that powerful coalition when you are trying to guide any change. If you don't have 75%, you are in trouble as the process of change is going to go forward. Right? But the thinking here is that many leaders, many successful leaders, they believe that they are the only ones who know everything. They are not open to new ideas. They are not open to discussion. Right? My way or highway is the approach. Many times, even if they are listening, they are not really listening. They are not maybe listening to accommodate the other person. If the suggestion has the power, if the suggestion is important, then you should take it in. And then as the coalition is going to grow, the possibility of change effort to be a success is going to improve. We always listen about this pointer, vision. Right? Vision is important. I started my presentation with the vision of HRD unit. Now the coalition is going to think of the vision. And what is important here is that the vision should be understood from top to bottom in the organization. It is not just that the top leadership understand the visions, and at the people at secretary level, they don't really understand what this vision is about. Right? So what they are saying is from top to bottom, everyone should be able to communicate, understand and communicate your vision in less than 60 seconds. That is very important again. Now, it is not just about communicating the vision. It is also about living that vision. When the organization want to make some changes, they are thinking of some transformation and they say, let's do X, should be able to link it with the vision. Now, how many of us can, let me ask you here, how many of us can tell the vision of their organization? You don't have to answer me, just think in your mind. How many of us can explain that vision in less than 60 seconds to someone? Just think in your mind. Now think in your mind how your job, whatever job you do, how that job is linked with that vision. Do you see any linkage, or you are basically lost? So if the answer is no of any of these questions, it is not necessarily your fault. It is the fault of the leadership. They need to ensure that the staff can do that. It is their job, particularly when they are managing change. And particularly in current environment, where technology is disrupting almost all industry, you name it, from education, banking, retail. The way we shop has changed globally. The way we buy, the way we sell, e-commerce. Right? Education, technologies are coming more and more inside the lecture room, from both sides, from the student side, from the lecturer side. So in these situations, the vision becomes very important, not just knowing the vision, ability to link that vision with your daily job. How your job is adding value to that vision. How your job is helping the organization to achieve what they want to achieve over there. Now communication again. This is a concept which I'm sure you have gone through in many of the lectures. We know how important is communication, right? So the idea is here that communication needs to be completed properly and effectively. You are looking at a picture right there. Maybe that is not the best way to communicate. He's like screaming, and it seems like he's over communicating. But then the problem is that you should not be under communicating also. It is not that you tell your staff or your colleagues about some change effort one time and you say, okay, I have told them one time and they got it and they should be able to remember it, work on it. It is not like that. You have to tell them again and again and again. I'm sure you must have had this experience. Right? And then I would link this with the first pointer, urgency. And I would want you to reflect on that. Maybe when people are not reacting on your communication, maybe in their mind, it is not that urgent. They maybe feel it can wait. So if you get the first step right, make it urgent for them, maybe when the communication for that area would come, they would be more willing to incorporate their effort over there. Another thing I would want to add here is communication is also linked with role modeling, how your leaders behave in practice. It's not just what they are saying, the idea is about walk the talk. Right? You are saying something, are you doing it? For example, you want your staff to change, you want them to attend meetings regularly, all of the meetings, and the upper level staff is absent from most of the meetings. So they might come because of fear or losing job or some other reason, but not from that inner feeling. They might not buy it. They have to see their key people. people who have influence in the organization do the thing which they are preaching. Right? That is very important over there. But what is happening is the big error organizations are making when you would scan through the literature of change management, transformation, organizational transformation. They think that, well, just communicate it, and they are sharp people. We don't have to repeat the message. They will just get it and learn. But that is not necessarily the case. You have to use all the vehicles, appropriate vehicles, all the instruments to engage them. If emails are not working, you want to find some other way. But then sometimes these things are easily said than done in practice, because all these things are going to take a lot of time and effort from the top leadership, and they might not have that time to invest. So that can be a problem over there. Any change, any worthwhile change, any worthwhile transformation effort, there are going to be obstacles. And whenever we are in change situation, we should anticipate the obstacles. We should not be thinking that, well, there should be no obstacle at all. Any goal, worthwhile goal, there has to be some opposition, there has to be some resistance, some issues. But your job is to pass those obstacles. Sometimes because of obstacles, your subordinates, they are going to get worried, demoralized, demotivated. Well, this is very difficult, maybe we cannot do that. Right? So motivate them over there. Tell them that this is possible. Initially, you're going to face some obstacles, but eventually you will get the hang of it. For example, think about driving. Think about the first time we drove. We wanted to know where the gear is, where the brake is, everything. But now it comes naturally to us. Right? Same thing with change. We are not used to something. It does not fall under our habit. We have to go out of our comfort zone. So there would be some obstacles over there. So leadership part is over there, that they maybe through training, building their capabilities, talking with them, listening to them, what are the problems, asking them how we can solve these problems. Right? So all those things are going to be very beneficial, especially in the context of modern organizations. Another error which we have seen when we look at organizations' transformation efforts is that they don't create some wins as they go along the journey of changing a process. They don't create wins. So the literature says that you have to create some wins. You have to tell them that, well, we are nearing to our target. If we don't do that, research suggests that many times, people lose interest. Because change is in its own nature, it is hard. And when you are seeing nothing, no tangible benefit in 6 months, in a year, in 1.5 years or before, you get disinterested. You have to see some results. So for leadership, it is very important that they create some short-term wins. Right? Everyone like to see some gain, some win. So if they have shown some improvement in their job as they took on the change initiative, you praise them, right? And tell them it is possible, right? So many times organizations are focused on the end results. And this is what we wanted to transform, this is what we wanted to achieve. We'll only celebrate once everything is complete. No, as you go along the way, small successes, give them some increments, keep them excited in the journey. Otherwise, they will lose interest. And then again, you have to create short-term wins, but when you see a couple of short-term wins, you don't have to declare that we have won the war. Right? This is a tendency which is being seen in many organizations. They want to achieve some transformation, and they see some good things happening, and then they say, well, we have done it. We are talking about habits here. We are talking about the way we do things. We are talking about culture here. It is not really easy to change them. You have to see the results, the performance over a little extended period of time. Right? So never declare victory too soon. But of course, yes, short-term gains, you have to mention to them. And then the last error here, the eighth one, the last one is that you have to anchor the change. Once the change has been achieved, the transformation has been achieved, it has to be the part of culture. And what is that? The way we do things over here. So by that time, the transformation or the change you wanted to achieve, it should be a part of shared values of the employees in different departments. Because if it is not a part of shared value, and although you have successfully transformed the organization, in the long run, the change would not sustain. Right? So a transformation effort, the change must sustain. Now all of this may sound a little simplistic, but the reality is that it is simple, but it is hard to do. It's not something which is a rocket science. I would like to share a recent example with you guys where I used a couple of these pointers in the class I am teaching. This semester I was teaching productivity and quality management. What happened in that course is that we had a midterm. It was a simple midterm. We had multiple choice questions over there, and it was around 40% of their coursework. And when the results came, 40% of the class failed. So a midterm which has multiple choice questions, 40% of the class failed, meaning they were not able to get half of the mark. Right? Naturally, I was disappointed, and I shared my disappointment with them using these techniques. So I told them that what is the importance of doing better in a course is for them, showing them self-interest, showing them urgency, how urgent it is. And I kept on doing it repeatedly, using different communication channels, showing them the vision, telling them what I believe they can do, sharing my own stories with them, right? Sharing other people's story who are not very successful in something and then they achieved the hurdles, how they did it. So in every class we used to talk about it, maybe for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And I kept on telling them that you can do it. If you commit yourself, you can bring this change. You are not coming to classes, as is the case in the full-time school. Many times students can't come to class for many reasons. Even when the course was finishing, when we had 2-3 weeks left, and I would ask them, have you started studying? And they would say no. In my heart, I was very disappointed again, but I tell them, well, you can still do it. You can still do it. You can make that change. So they had their final exam, and I have finished marking their papers. And I am very happy with the results. Only 10% of the class failed. This is quite a transformation. From 40% in midterm failure rate going to 10%. Of course, there must be some other reasons to it. I tell them that you have to prepare these chapters, of course. I pointed them in the right direction, of course, because it is a wide topic. But these pointers, the idea of sharing this story is that these pointers, they can help in any transformation effort, right? Be it your personal life or in organization setting. So let's just revise what we spoke about. So number one, establish a sense of urgency. Right? The employees, the people who are going to take that change, they need to understand that this change is urgent and we have to do it now. They need to understand the consequences there. If we are unable to do it, we might go out of business, we might die. Right? Second, guiding powerful coalition. Don't try to change things on your own. Even though you are very competent, you need favor, you need help from other people, from other departments. Vision. It should not be just clear in your head, but it should be properly communicated. Not only in the form of words, in the form of emails, but in the demeanor of the key people of the organization. It has to be shown there. And as leader, you need to ensure that you remove all the obstacles through training, through motivation. Different keys can be used over there. And give them encouragement. It might be they might get stuck on an obstacle. They might not be able to deliver as quickly as you thought. Initially, they would be able to. Need to give them some time over there. Right? Create short-term wins, but at the same time, don't declare that we have won the war, we have transformed the organization, because it is a long-term process. It is not something which can be done overnight. Well, there are some instances where they can be done quickly, but in my understanding is that a transformation effort is unsuccessful if it does not continue. It has to be sustained. Yes. And then the last thing, and very important thing, embed it in the culture of the organization. It has to become part of shared values. It has to become the part of the story of the organization. Right? So these things are very important, and at this point in time, if we have something to ask, I would be very happy to answer some questions if there are any. Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay.
All right. We are going to open up for questions, but I will start off with the first question. What we've heard of is managing change in very formal organizations that have formal structures. But you know, we're in Jamaica, and quite a few of our organizations are either informal or they operate in informal settings. So I wanted to know if you had any ideas for adapting the model that you've just outlined here for those kinds of organizations. Because, for instance, some of our organizations may be agile, the fact that they are informal, there's no board, there's no management structure to speak of. But by the same token, they may not be robust. So there is a strength and a weakness there, an opportunity, a threat. So there is that, but then also in informal settings, in informal, the economy in which we work and all of that, we end up with organizations that don't conform to the rules that you read about in management books. And then the second thing that I want to know is if you end up with an organization that has a culture that is resistant to change, so that is the definition of the culture, that they are bureaucratic and they revel in the fact that they don't move. If that is what you're confronted with, what are you going to do there?
Yes. So Olivine has raised very interesting pointers over there. She's talking about agile organizations, and that is the way, if you look at global setting, that is the way the organizations are. They are not necessarily following a hierarchy. They have the hierarchy, but the idea of collaboration is at the heart of it. So what they do in those settings, the problem she has identified, and it is very right, the organizations are facing these problems. How they solve it, let's talk about it. What they do is that they bring in people from different departments of the organization, the powerful people from different departments, and they form a group over there. And in that department, they are in that committee, they ask them to bring in the middle management from their departments who are facing those issues over there. And then collectively, they exchange ideas and collaborate over there and try to come up with some solution over there. So basically, the idea is collaboration over there, right? Not just the top leadership or the leaders of different departments. It's not that they just come in and they decide what needs to be done, but collaborative effort, bringing in people from the other departments in the organization who are facing that problem, who are unable to make that change, and asking them the solutions and guiding them through the procedure. I would like to mention some companies which are really doing it, and Olivine rightly mentioned the aspect of trust in the intro part, when she was talking to us. LinkedIn is one organization which is doing this, and they have this post also, what they call it VP of Trust. So LinkedIn has a VP at that level who's designated to manage the trust of the employees. Now this thing is quite new. You would not see VP of Trust maybe in local setting, or even internationally. Very few companies have VP of Trust. So if you just Google VP Trust LinkedIn, you're going to see her profile, and you're going to see what is the task, what are some of the things she's doing over there. So that kind of role really helps in managing change, in transforming change effort in such instances. Second thing Olivine was mentioning, I trust, is about resistance to change. This is a big thing. This is really, really a big issue, because whenever you want to make a change in the organization, you have the bigger picture, you know what are the benefits of changing, but all the time, maybe your employees or colleagues, they are not seeing it. They want to do status quo thing. They don't want to get involved in extra work, right? Because whenever you are going to go through a transformation, of course, some people are going to get some added responsibilities, right? So they don't want to do that kind of thing. So the resistance to change is a big issue whenever the transformation efforts fail. How are you going to minimize this resistance? Well, storytelling is one thing, but if you dig deep down in the literature, you are going to find out. I was listening to a guy, and he was saying that whenever we are dealing with change resistance, you are going to find out some people who are fundamentally against the resistance. And you might take some time and try to convince them, and that is what the normal understanding is. We like to bring people on board. If someone is disagreeing, we spend some time to convince them, well, this is good thing, don't resist that much to this initiative, and so on and so forth. But the guy is saying that forget about it. After a certain level, if you are still feeling some resistance from some people, don't worry about them, because they are going to resist. Find the people who are going to support you. Bring in the people who have that same vision which you have, and form a guiding coalition over there with them. Because this mentality that I am going to convince other person and he is going to start resisting less is a little flawed. So we need to, of course, we need to communicate our vision and tell the other person what is good in it for them. But then again, we don't want to overdo this thing by convincing someone who is not really interested in your change effort. I hope this answered.
Yes. Most of the time, you see, in trying to make that change, you have to take a serious look. You mentioned the organizational culture.
Yes.
You have to take a serious look at it. I can recall not so long ago, we tried to make some change in the office, and what the staff members did was just to wait out management, because they know that after a while, they're not going to follow. There is not enough of that driving home what you're trying to do. So the argument from the person leading the organization was that if you put Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King, right, they couldn't beat those people in passive resistance. Because they just said yes. They understand what they're trying to do, and when they get out of probably that meeting, right, they go right back. They just wait you out, So I think that you mentioned the change, they're looking at the culture, and the change have to take seriously into consideration the culture of the organization. Take a serious look at it. And part of what I was looking for in the presentation was something more about training. Yeah? Not necessarily formal training, but have frequent maybe meetings or get together. Not, I don't mean over drinks and so, but have frequent meetings and provide ideas and things that would help to lift their understanding of what you're trying to do. Because sometimes people might not understand. You think they do, but they don't.
Yes.
Just a suggestion.
Yes, very useful points, especially I would like to talk about the first one where our colleague is saying that initially people will nod their head when you are telling them about the change, and they would say that yes, we are with you and we are going to help you out with this. But when they sit with their own colleagues, with their own level of management, they are going to resist it. Basically, this phenomena is seen in the instances where those colleagues who are nodding their head were not the most influential people in that meeting. They might be the mid-level management, so they cannot just openly say, we are going to not do it. They can't show their resistance very openly. So in those cases, they nod their heads in the meeting maybe, and then later on, they are not going to really help you. So in such circumstances, it is very important that this idea, this openness to change, this openness to transformation, this openness to innovation is embedded in the culture of the organization, and I totally agree with the comments made regarding training and those kind of things. Yes.
Okay. Change begins with a mindset. So my question is, what do you do with employees who do not want to change? You have gone through the motivational aspect of it, encouraging, training, communicating effectively, and all of that. But still, they are still resistant to change. What do you do? Do you get rid of them or do you keep them?
Very interesting question, very interesting and very relevant to what we were discussing today. I would like to say that always try to get a second opinion. Maybe it is only you who try to change them and it is just you who are managing them. Always try to have a second opinion from other colleagues, from your peers, inside the organization and outside the organization, and take them through how you try to change them. And ask their opinion, what are some of the other ways which you can use over there, because if you look at the texts of negotiation, they say that everyone can say yes to your terms. If they are not saying yes to your terms, maybe you need to change the way you approach them. So maybe it depends on the organization, it depends on that particular set of employees or employee, what is their personality, but try to approach them with a different mindset. Maybe you don't want to approach them again. Look, find the people who have more influence on those employees. There must be some people in the organization where they are listening to those people more. So maybe bring them in your coalition which you are forming over there. So that can be useful. But at the end of the day, if nothing seems to get working, but that should be the last thing. I would say that should be the last thing, because just because of one thing that they are not willing to change the way you want them to change, you don't want to get rid of someone. Maybe they have other qualities. Maybe you want to remove them from that area and put them in some other area where they can contribute more. So these are some of the techniques which you can use. I hope I answered the question.
Good evening, I know I'm late, but I just comment about sustenance of change. Because not just change for change, because we can change, but are not committed to sustaining the change. And the whole implication of culture and training and the issue of communication, because you have to get the buy-in for the behavioral changes. One of the ways to address the whole issue of resistance to change that organizations utilize is the whole reward system, and not necessarily rewards through compensation. I mean, you reward the behaviors that you want to integrate. And if you look at the reinforcement theory, it talks about the different methodologies of creating consequences for not aligning yourself to the behaviors. So the training is about, some instances is it in depth enough to create, because at the end of the day, like learning, it is individual, and you have to get your workforce on board. And leaders have visions. I'm engaged in a conversation in an organization where the leaders engage in a change activity. But the change is only based on his personal vision and the reality of the organization and the culture and the realities of getting the change to happen and sustaining. It can be somebody's tick the box or their own achievement factor. So change is not as easy as we like to say it is, and we can unfreeze, train, and refreeze. But how long do we refreeze, and how serious we are about the change? Because in our own social context, sometimes we are hypocrites to the change, and we shake our heads, and even the leadership themselves, they lose their energy to reinforce the change, and change is about risk. So if you're not serious and willing to take the risk, because leadership is not about popularity, and we see ourselves embroiled in a society that we have reluctantly made changes in organizations to our own detriment, that we're now seeing mergers and acquisitions within our own society, because we have not adapted to the change, and we don't understand the change and what we're changing for. So the dynamics of change has a lot of interplay with a lot of different organizational influences, individual influences, and must connect to the external environment. So I don't even know if it's a question. But, that's just my contribution. I'm late, I don't know if it was covered, but I think that, we can easily talk about change. And we do an activity, I do an activity with my students about change. There are some who are willing to embrace change, maybe because they're bored or they want something new. And there are others who resist change because some of their power or, some of the juice, as we say in coaching, they don't want to give it up. So the dynamics of change is easy to talk about. What is important is that we must have strategies to ensure that the change is relevant, that's understood, that it is engaging, and that we are committed to sustaining. Because many leaders lose their energy, and because they are criticized, it does not necessarily mean that you're on the wrong path. It's just that you have to have more passion and energy to get people engaged. So that's my contribution on the relate.
Absolutely, absolutely correct. Basically, there is change and there is change, right? So this is what she is basically talking about. Very good, yes.
Just to ask a question, you said for point 6 and point 7, declaring, not creating short-term wins. Why shouldn't the management, if you want to create such a big change, and you say that say 50 or 60% of the people look like they're embracing the change, why sit down and wait until 75% and not talk about this victory that, the way it is looking good for the company, that the change is being made? Why sit and wait? I mean, we were saying that it's long term, but I mean, why not let everybody know that most of the people embracing the change?
So what basically we said that change efforts, change transformations are more successful when 75% of the people who are involved in change, they are with you. For the short-term wins, basically we were saying that do engage in short-term wins. Whenever you see a little improvement, a little increment, do celebrate it. But what we were saying over there is that don't just say that you have won the war, you have completed the task. That was a little maybe, yes, yes.
I just want to commend you for a good presentation and for those excellent pointers. Yes, just want to add to the discussion in terms of the resistance to change and all that. I'm just thinking, based on my experience, what you find, many persons are in the organizations and they are in departments for which they are not suited.
Yes.
Meaning that they are misfit for the unit or department. So in terms of change, we may need to get them out of that department, right? Probably as a last resort. If you have tried all the other, options and they just don't work. People are not changing, even if they don't even recognize that they are going to benefit from the change. You may want to actually move them out of that organization, because oftentimes people are there and they are just there, but they are actually resigning their hearts to see it in their faces. So sometimes just by moving them or engage them, have a discussion with them as to where they see themselves in the organization. One organization, I went to the the ERMAJ conference just the other day, and one strategy that was brought out in one presentation is that sometimes you have to spotlight people. I mean, you have to engage in spotlighting. Meaning sometimes you have to, identify persons within the organization, showcase them, talk to them, engage them, find out where they want to be. How can they add value to the organization? And we can do that on a one-to-one basis or a group basis, and it will make a big difference within the context of the organization.
Excellent pointers over there. The only thing is that these things are very time consuming, as you would learn. The leadership or the person who is managing the department, they have to put a lot of effort in that. And they have other tasks also, day-to-day tasks. So sometimes these efforts, they get little attention. It all goes back to the urgency, how urgent that transformation is for you, for your department, for your organization. If it is urgent, you have to bring it up on the list of priority, and as our colleague is saying, that it is very beneficial. I would like to add a little bit to that, it is very beneficial to understand why the other person is saying no. What is the reason? For example, when we are talking about technological transformation, new technology coming in the department, maybe some of the colleagues would not be so accepting of the technology, thinking that they don't want to go through that training. They are not comfortable with that. They are more comfortable with paper instead of going paperless. So you have to understand why they are saying no, and then try to minimize their fear. And that can help you over there. Thank you. Yes.
Some organization, you'll have a new manager decide to come and change everything without understanding exactly what is going on. That is where you can have a very big problem of resistance. You come in and decide that I know everything and I'm going to change it. They were doing foolishness over these 10 years, and I decide that I can make my mark by changing everything.
Excellent pointer, and I would like to link it with the pointer our other colleague made about mergers and acquisitions. Many times it happens in that setting, something is not working. You say, okay, remove the top leadership, bring in new people. It is not necessary that even if that person was successful in their setting, it might not be successful in our own setting. So just removing the people is not enough, but of course when you bring in new people, new blood comes in, new ideas come in, new way of thinking come in, you can always benefit from it, but the person who is leading the transformation effort, they should be very comfortable in understanding the culture, understanding the people, why people are resisting to that change, all those things they need to really understand it over there. Maybe what can happen is that someone who understand the context, they can help the new person, guide them. But then again, how open that person is to the guidance. If he's very successful outside, he might just come in and he say, well, do it my way. If you want me, you're going to do it my way. So excellent pointers here. Yes.
I have been reading some psychology recently, which says that disagreeable people have more organizational impact than non-disagreeable people. So that all of those things that you put up there, disagreeable people put aside, and they go about doing things the way they want to do it. But not only that, not only do they go about doing things the way they want to do it, but in doing that, they get people to follow them. And the humanistic managers, taking all of those things into consideration, have less impact than a Steve Jobs, who curses his way through the organization, impose things on people, and say this is the way it is going to be. And this seems to be the real world. So that in listening to the presentation, the thing that came to mind to me was, if you take the successful companies that have transformed, have they followed this blueprint? Or do they have a disagreeable man at the top, fully narcissistic and convinced of his vision, who imposes it as he goes along? And all of the people you see sitting on the sideline, when the boss walks down, they jump on the bandwagon and they get the thing done. Whereas the reasonable manager, right, they continue to languish.
Very, very interesting point over there, and it happens all of the time. Our colleague here mentioned Steve Jobs. And that is the way he used to be. He would say, well, this is how I want it to be done. You're going to do it this way. If you are not going to do it this way, you can go home. This thing is not very well known to many people. They think Steve Jobs is maybe a very happy-go-lucky lucky guy, but he was not. It is very true. So there are some leaders who have been doing it that way, and it helps. It helps. It helps. I'm not arguing that that is the wrong way to do it. But then there are some organizations where people like to collaborate. People try to bring in most people in the coalition. People like to have more people who are saying yes to the vision, not because of fear, not because of losing job, but because they buy in. They say, yes, what he's saying or she's saying, what the leader is saying, this is what we need to do. One company which comes to my mind when I'm talking about this, please read up on this company. You must be familiar with it. Red Bull is a very famous company. They make energy drinks, Red Bull. And they make so many other products also. I'm forgetting the name of the leader, but if you Google it, you're going to find it out and see how he developed his company, how he came up with that idea, how he used to run. I think he passed away a year ago or so, but don't quote me on that. But just read up on Red Bull and the leadership, and it would be very interesting.
Good evening, everyone. Well, you spoke about the leaders, and we were taught that leaders influence others to get things done. And in the concept of being, I say a leader would be a change agent, and I'm just thinking, why not, if the employees aren't making the change, why not the leader step back and say, maybe I should step out, right? Or, as I see Dr. Hutton here, I remember I was in his class once, and we had to do some research on emotional intelligence. And Doc, I still have my assignment, people. They need to go a little bit deeper, right? And look at the person coming into the organization, because they come with baggages. How can we sit one-on-one in coaching and see how we can make the change? Or I think the leaders should step aside. That's just my piece.
Well, maybe some leaders would want to step aside if they are feeling a lot of opposition, not necessarily because they want to, but if the people they are managing, they are opposing them a lot, maybe in that case they would want to step aside, but most of the times the perks, the privileges they enjoy, they don't want to leave them that easily. So I don't see that thing happening anytime soon, that a leader would want to step aside on their own. But yes, this is a good pointer, that if the leader thinks that they cannot manage the change, they should. But I don't think that happens many times. Maybe you guys can share some examples.
However, the work that I have been doing has been work on mavericks. And these people don't wait for the leader to step aside, but they usurp the leader, bring things in, and make change in the organization. So that is another interesting area that we can go into organizations, the maverick.
Yes, Steve
Jobs is
Yeah,
rewarded.
but can I just add something later? Just to pose a question in terms of the urgency of the change, because that also dictates the style, because the industry that Jobs is in, there's no time to wait for newness, you know, and the dynamism of where he existed. So the situation and the requirements of the change also dictates how the change is driven within the organization. But there are times when organizations can't afford to wait on the dialogue and the influencing and the negotiation, because the change has to happen for organizational success at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, organizations are there to make a profit and to sustain themselves. So just to respond to what Mr. Branch mentioned, that I'm not as widely read as Mr. Branch, but I'm just part of the experience, and the reading is the urgency of the change. Because sometimes we can afford to have that engagement. There are other times, and in international businesses, there's not that luxury many times to have that level of engagement. Although required in some instances, it is often overlooked at the urgency of success. So I just want to ask if this is something that is a consideration.
Yes, absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And I would like to add here that these technologies, they have really disrupted almost all industries. Let's take some example. For example, 3D printing. Now you can have a printer and make anything you want if you have the material over there and you have the design of that thing with you. So how that thing is going to affect the industry of manufacturing in a bulk, how that is going to affect over there. So yes, very good point over there, that we don't have a lot of time in many industries to wait and see, okay, we are going to wait a little and then we are going to take on that opportunity. We have to react very fast, yes. So last point I would want to make here is that the employees, the people who are going through that change, they should see that it is not that they are being changed. They should see that they are being used to make the change. If we can do that and we can look at these errors and minimize these errors, we would increase our chances of organizational transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tashfeen, for that. I would just want to close off by urging us, as I said earlier, I want us to join in on the writing and the development and sharing of ideas that are particularly relevant to the Caribbean. So one of the things that I want us to remember is that our organizations, just as is happening globally, are increasingly flat, and we don't have the management structures that we've been discussing this evening. But beyond that, they're small and professionally led. And by professionally led, I don't mean that they have professional managers. What they have are doctors who believe that they know, and lawyers and architects and those sort of who believe that they know how to manage organizations. And the statistics would show that those organizations actually make up a very sizable percentage of what operates in the business environment here in Jamaica. So I'm not speaking for the rest of the Caribbean, but certainly for here in Jamaica. So we need to begin to think about how we're going to adapt what we see elsewhere and what operates elsewhere to the kinds of situations that we have here locally in Jamaica. So thanks again, and it's food for thought for us. And so now I would like to invite our own Anna Hamilton from cohort 16, somebody who just graduated. She will come to say a few words of thanks to our presenter.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Ahmad, on behalf of the Human Resource Development Program, we would like to extend our sincere gratitude for this very informative presentation on change And I'm sure each and every one of us here, we will all take back to our respective organizations, change management and how to implement change in our organizations. And we would like to present this token to you.
Thank you very much. Glad to be part of your 20th anniversary.
Okay, thank you.